What's up, guys? We're gonna get right into it here. It's gonna be a pretty chill stream, probably a little bit of a shorter one today. I just got done cutting my grass. I'm super exhausted, but I still gotta get some stuff done on this face today. I haven't done very much sculpting on this yet, but what changes I have made since our last stream, I will show you. And while I'm going through here on all this stuff, as always, I'm going to give you guys some time to pop in here. But as always, of course, ask as many questions as you want, and I'll do my best to answer. If I can get that to stay. All right, I think we're good there. And let's see, where is it? D Dino, the concept artist. Go check him out. There's a link down in the description. Awesome artist, awesome art. Ooh, he changed his profile picture recently, so that's new. Go check him out. Give him a like. Give him a follow on ArtStation. Whatever you got to do. And then also go ahead and click that link down in the description if you have not yet. Check out my Gumroad if you like the free stuff that I do, and if you like the live streams here, then I would appreciate you guys at least checking it out. There's some cool stuff on there. There's my brushes, materials that I use. I recommend making your own brushes though, so maybe don't get those. I'm not a very good spokesperson for myself. I got my newest tutorial on there, and I'm also offering mentorships. I'm working on another tutorial as well right now. But yeah, go check that stuff out, and I would appreciate it greatly. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in here. That's a Deadpool character, right? Says Shiny Huntagumi. That is correct. Domino. Her name is Domino. Her superpower is that she is extremely lucky. She's a part of the X-Force. I recently watched Deadpool 2, so now I'm an expert on all things Marvel. No, I don't know a ton about the Marvel universe, but I know all the big ones. So let me show you guys some of the changes that I have made on our face. I'm gonna toggle off my hair so we can see this a little bit easier. So you know what, actually, let me see. Let me load in an older version, and we can take a look at this. I think this will be good for comparative reasons. I'll just turn that off. Alright, so let's look at the profile view first. So things were looking pretty flat in the face. It also kind of had this tilted forward, kind of shelfy look to it. So if we look here, I've added more depth to the eyes as well as around the mouth and other portions of the face. Kind of get a 3/4 look here. Going back to the old version. Eyes are much smaller, so I've increased the size of the eyes. I've tried to get more of the roundness in here, as well as if we look at the face from this angle here, I've tried to get a little bit more of the roundness of the face in there, a little bit more depth. And just kind of looking straight on, we can see some of the changes to the mouth region, as well as kind of the silhouette of our head. So just trying to get a little bit more appeal and a little bit more accuracy to some of the parts and pieces in here. So I think that's a good kind of look back. And moving forward from here, I've kind of got some of these changes in here, but I've strayed a little bit from our concept in some of the proportions in different areas of the face. So now I'm gonna try to get some of that back. My sister just got obsessed over him. I don't know who him is. We were talking about Domino. Maybe Deadpool. Maybe that's what your sister is obsessed with. Mohit says, that's why it looks familiar. Now I can remember. Yes. Domino. Link down in the description for you guys for the original concept artist as well. I shouted that out maybe before some of you got in here and saw that. If you're new to the stream or have not seen me work on this character yet. Let's see. So like I was saying, kind of a more chill stream tonight. I'm going to, it might not be as long as our normal ones either. I'm just going to kind of chill out, work on some stuff, and see what we can get done. And of course, answer some questions, if I can. Alright, so one thing we can do, it's kind of not a great idea to do this too much with this character. So I can kind of come here and try to line up the face as much as I can, but unfortunately our concept that we're working off of is pushed pretty far in a lot of different directions, and I kind of have to rein it back in and try to find out where it's being pushed past kind of the limits of what's actually going to be possible in 3D. Now, you know, I can sit here and try to match every single little angle from that front view, but what's going to happen is it's going to warp a lot of stuff from the side view. There's honestly some skewing happening in the face here. I mean, you know, there's a lot of stuff being cheated all for the sake of this one singular view in the silhouette. So we have to find that stuff and do the best we can to fix all that. Not necessarily fix, but kind of, like I said, rein in. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a little bit more point to our chin. I think our silhouette is almost where I want it, looking here. If I turn a little bit more to the 3/4, not quite the 3/4, looking at this line here coming down, and then essentially it's just 1, 2, if we look at that angle. A little bit up to the brow there. So what I would like to try is get some of this roundness out of here. It's really not a lot. It's a really subtle thing here, but I want to kind of just tuck that in a little bit. I want to look from my 3/4 view, and I want to get that hit. I'm looking at kind of where my mouth is, following that line, maybe with the nose as well. So I think that hit should be right about there, whereas it's kind of more starting to turn up there. So if I can kind of pull that out a little bit more here, and maybe even pinch a little bit at first, just to kind of start pulling that out in that direction. And then we can kind of start softening that. I like to use the pinch brush a lot to, you know, initially kind of state really harshly a plane break, like we're seeing there. And then you can always go through and soften that up after the fact. And I'm wondering, I think if we kind of pull through from the line of the mouth up here, I think we can get that even a little bit more. Soften that back. And make sure that things are just looking nice and clean, don't have any strange shadows. I also want to look at this from some more extreme angles, kind of like what I'm doing right now. And just kind of seeing how this stuff is looking in silhouette. Something that kind of concerns me some of the shapes of or size of my features. I think we have some nice appeal going on with a lot of this stuff, but I think it maybe just a bit too big. If we look at this, you know, that line of the mouth is kind of in line with the nose here, not quite on the left side. Some of that is kind of like the angle that's happening here. There's some tilt to the face and everything else. So we want to take that into account. We don't want to just snap to our front view and say, the mouth needs to be, whoops, the mouth needs to be in line with the top portion of the nostril. We don't want to, you know, take this and try to translate it to a front view. So some of this stuff is a little bit harder to map out than other areas. The eye is something that's kind of bothering me. So let's hop into Transpose Master. Swap to our Folly clay material here. Now I have perspective on. It's sometimes helpful to turn that off though while you're looking at the front view or any other orthographic view. Let's try to get in here and mask off some stuff. I'm just gonna mask off my eyes and my eyebrows so that I don't affect them. Definitely a big kind of curve coming through here. Trying to figure out that gap between the nose. I think in terms of size or distance there, I think we're pretty good. Trying to look at this from a kind of somewhat similar angle to what we got there. And I want to push this eye shape a little bit more. Try to play around here, see what we can do. So the read that I'm getting here, it's different on each eye. So we definitely have kind of this similar flat plane on top. Obviously, this eye is a little bit more narrow than this one. This one has a nice, really nice kind of curve that I think we kind of have present over here, right? This one, we got kind of like this sharp kind of point down. Getting a little bit more of a boxy read there. And I think the thing that's really throwing me off right now is kind of the size of the eyes. So if I can shrink in the size of this eyeball some, and I know this is a weird shape here inside, but that's what happens when you have giant eyeballs for a character. I'm also wanting to do this because if we look at just my face, if I can even select that, I want to somewhat pull in this inner corner a little bit more. I want to experiment with that at least. That was something that was kind of sticking out to me. So let's look at masking these both off again. And the way I'm going to pull in on this corner is I'm going to try to get a somewhat large move brush. If I go too small here and try to pull this in, it's not going to move everything along with it. It's not going to move as much as I need, so it's going to kind of pull in a little tight there. So a little bit of a larger move brush. Try to pull this all in together and still keep that nice flow. Lower eyelid. Just make sure that that line is still nice and clean through there. Still got the roundness coming out here for that lower lid. Same up top, but from, you know, kind of this downward tilted angle. I want this to read as pretty much a straight line, which we pretty much have already, so that's good. But now just kind of pull this back a little, pull in. So my first, I kind of ended up breaking a lot of stuff trying to get that some really nice depth back in there in the face. I'm just kind of trying to rein some of that back in. I think the eyes are just a little bit either too big or I just need to like really kind of push this angle here a little bit more. Something with this top edge, I think, though. Top lid. Let's see. Alien face game strong. Do you prefer working in one layer? I don't use ZBrush layers now. I prefer working in a single layer, but I use a lot of subtools, which are kind of like layers. Got undo history and everything on each one of those. The only time I would actually use layers is for texturing. If I'm gonna do some like really high poly stuff with alphas or like pores or anything like that, I might play with that more. Let's jump on back. See how that's looking. Osset Anima says, hey Folly, are you going to be participating in Sculptember this year? I don't know. I hadn't considered it. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow is the September, so I don't know. I haven't really looked at it at all. Maybe. I got a lot of junk going on right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and say no, but I might play around occasionally. Let's see. Fill object. I'm trying to fix my eyes. I think the symmetry broke on them. It's poking through on one side and not the other. There's a couple ways that you can, let me retry that. A couple ways you can get your symmetry back, but I kind of wanted to remesh this shape as well, so I'm kind of fine with this. The main thing is that I just keep the roundness of this eye in here, which I think we've done a decent job of keeping that. Let's see, delete you. I need to redo this. I'm going to transpose this and send it back. So for our silhouette here, I think I want to kind of pull out this side a little bit more. I was pushing that back, and as I did that, it ended up kind of getting pushed in some, so I just want to flatten and or round that out some. As well as, for those that are new, just popping in for the first time, show you guys the body of our character that we've been sculpting on and playing with. I'm sculpting this asymmetrically in the body and then symmetrically in the face. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but I think we've got a lot of good stuff going on in the body. There are quite a few things that need to be tweaked and changed and fixed all over, but for the most part I think we have it in a good blocked out place. This is what the original concept looks like for those that are new here. So body, and then the head is not aligned with any of that. So I work on these separately until I get to a point where I'm happy with the face, and then I'm willing to pose it, break symmetry, and get in there with everything. In our last stream we were kind of working on the hair. Since then I've pulled a lot of this out and started to get a little bit more volume up front for us. And I still need to move a lot of these hair strands around quite a bit. We have a lot of stuff to do up there. There's a lot of complex shapes. This is very uninformative in a lot of ways, but we will get there. It's not a matter of how hard it is, it's just a matter of time. So I'm turning around very slowly right now. It might seem like I'm making very minimal changes. I am, but I'm just looking at my silhouette and trying to get a good read here on what's going on. So I'm mainly kind of looking over here right now, looking at how these different hits are happening, as well as kind of over here. Get a little bit more roundness in the face. It's definitely, you know, enough to pick and choose from. Let's see. I would like to try something here really quick. It might be something with the way the mouth is open and the jaw, but the read that I'm getting is that the face needs to be a little bit longer here. So I'm masking this off, softening the mask, and then you know, with your transpose tool you have a few different options. I'm using the move option, and then I'm pulling down on this long piece here, and that kind of acts as a way that you can stretch geometry, and then I'm kind of holding shift as well. So kind of a few different things going on here at once in terms of lengthening that. We'll see that take place as we T-pose that back. Then I want to move my mouth, or my nose down. Got some poly groups, makes it nice. And then, as well, Trying to get this nice kind of larger silhouette here. I might be able to push that even more.
So when I do that, just because of the way the masking is working, it's kind of pushing the nose down some. It's kind of like stretching it down, which I do not want. A little bit of a concavity going on here that I don't want. Just causing some awkward shadows, which is something we want to avoid. So round that out a little. And I'm just pinching to kind of re-get that surface turn, that kind of crease in there. But I'm not going to keep it that strong. I'm going back through after that and re-softening that crease. So as I move that nose, it kind of messed some of this stuff up, which is fine. Easy to fix. Turn our poly paint back on. And I think that looks better. Kind of want to mess with this angle here. It feels like so this curve, this S curve that I have, whoops, this S curve that I have going on here, it gets a little bit, it feels a little bit too bulbous right here, like that angle, that convexity that we have going on there. So I want to try to maybe pull that in some. If I can. So I can use my transpose tool, a really big move brush. Lots of really tiny tweaks here that are happening. But we can go back to our old face and kind of see how some of this stuff is coming together. Also, when you're using your smooth brush, fun fact, smooth brush or move brush, the smooth brush has RGB turned on for it. So if I switch to like a really low subdiv and I like move some stuff around, or I sculpt with a brush that has RGB on, you can end up poly painting without realizing it. Or some brushes have material on by default. So if you're like sitting here smoothing and doing some stuff, and then you like switch your material and step up, you'll very oftentimes, I'll like kind of do it on purpose here so you can see, you'll get like these little tiny artifact areas and you won't notice it because you'll have your normal material on.
and then you'll kind of like step back up and you'll get like these weird little areas. If that's happening for you, just turn on material on any brush. I use the standard brush to do this, and just click fill object at your highest subdiv. It'll also do that if you're like popping back between transpose master. Just depending on what brushes you're using, some of these can really start to screw with you if you got some of these on, which by default, it just so happens to have a lot of that stuff on. So let's see. A little bit more tweaking to the mouth area for Sculpt. She has a really unique, strange thing going on with her mouth. I have some nice polygroups in here, which makes selections a lot easier. I recommend doing that for your face. You can also use it to use ZBrush to retopo and get some poly loops and stuff, which I believe I have shown before, but allows you to get in there and control a lot of stuff. So with her mouth, she's got, like, this is her open mouth, right? And then she's got these really long stretched corners of her mouth that are just pushed extremely far. And this here, it's kind of like this, you know, the nice kind of Cupid's bow shape of the upper lip. And then we just have it terminating and then forming this crease. It's a little, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's like pushed pretty hard here, pretty strangely, but I have to kind of try to interpret some of this stuff and figure out how I'm going to represent it. The mouth I've played around with a lot and tried to really figure out. I kind of liked what I had before. Let me see. So I don't like the, I originally just had these hard lines in here so I could more easily sculpt in the creases around the mouth. But I got rid of these lines. These lines weren't gonna stay there, but I got rid of them just because they were making her look older, which is, I think, pretty obvious. Let's go back to this one. We definitely have the silhouette in a lot better place now. The shape of the face in a lot better place. Shape of the eyes. The nose, I'm not so sure about. I don't know, I kind of liked the nose before. Once you get to this stage, essentially it's just kind of comparing features against one another. So looking at the nose, kind of where that is in relation to the mouth, and then where the mouth is in relation to the nose and the eyes, the sides of the head. Typically when I start sculpting a face, you know, of course just start with the block out from a sphere, and then once you start doing like your eyes or nose or mouth or ears, whatever you're working on, I recommend that you kind of jump around as much as you can, just because if you work too long on any one part, like the face, or I'm sorry, like the mouth, all of a sudden you go to do your nose and you're like, wow, the mouth is just completely the wrong size or shape or placement in the face. So working on these things congruently really helps with that, in my opinion. Just so you're not, you know, wasting too much time. Plus you want to keep everything at about the same level of completion. You don't want to sculpt a face, have a beautiful nose on it, and then a crappy set of eyes and mouth. It's like completely useless to you. I want to... I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. I wanna move this lip out. Try to widen this area. It's like this awkward, some weird shape language going on here. I'm just trying to understand. Polypaint's kind of getting in the way for me too. Still want that to read well. We're getting, if you guys see kind of some of that shadow stuff in there happening. Let's pop on over here to this material. We can see that we got some areas here that need to be cleaned up, flattened down. I'm using the trim dynamic brush to do this. And then we get like all these, you know, weird little strokes in here. That's easy enough to kind of clean up with our smooth brush after we've done that. Just being gentle with both of these brushes. Planing that out. Got a little bit of a divot there that I'm seeing, picking up on, so all these areas. Clean them up. I pretty much want, you know, the transitional point of the face for this character to be on this line. And then kind of, you know, gently roll down to the jawline. And anything between here and the jaw, I need that to be pretty much flat. So any of these weird little areas where I'm getting more volume, I need to knock that down. I don't know about you guys, but I am getting like 1 billion sales calls recently. It's pretty annoying. What they do is they try to make their phone number that they're calling from like very similar to yours. I don't know if you guys have seen that before, but it's really weird. It'll be like really close to my phone number and then off by a few digits. I don't know if you guys have had that happen. They're all spammy numbers. Whenever I look them up, it's like scam call. Do not answer. It's like, okay, I wasn't planning on answering anyway. All right, so I think our face is in a lot better place than when we started here. I want to do a little bit more work on this bottom lip, and then from there, whatever you guys want to work on, I'm down to do. So we can take a little bit of a break from sculpting on this face. So if you guys got anything specific that you want to see in terms of techniques or tools, questions that maybe you've had lingering for a while that would take a little bit longer to answer than the quick little shout out, let's hear them. Let's do it. This lip, man. This is nasty. I kind of screwed this up. A lot of warble going on. Not to mention all these awkward shadows, and really kind of screwed this up. It might have already been screwed up. I might have just sculpted it this way. Very possible. It's always so easy to see mistakes in other people's work, in my opinion, but when looking at your own, sometimes you get tunnel vision. You've been working on it for so long, and that's why, you know, you got to step away for a little bit sometimes and take a bit of a break. Come back with fresh eyes. Look at this weird line in here. That like weird hit in the mouth, the lower lip. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. Probably just like do what I would normally do with the lower lip and build up that form in the middle, and then get like a nice kind of pillow look there with that crease in the middle. Like, ooh, wow, these are pinched really hard here. Let me soften this up. Really bad form there. Not good. Not what I want. Hi from Germany. Did you know that the actress who played Domino is German? I believe I did. I watched an interview with her and some late night talk show dude. Not got short dark hair, always wears a suit. Pretty funny dude. Can't think of his name. But yes, yes. I do remember seeing that. Do you know her? She's cool. She seems... I don't know what else she's in. She seems like a cool person. Literally every comment in the video was just about, wow, she's so beautiful. It's like, did anybody watch the interview? Well, I guess you did watch the interview, but did anybody listen to the interview? And I'll pull the paint back on. A thing that's that I'm noticing now. Let's look at the backside polys here. Maybe that's not a great idea. Do something like this, maybe. Yeah, that's not very helpful. Wasn't as helpful as I thought it would be. Maybe it's just my light. Looking here at this side of the face, that's not as bad as I thought it was. I think it's more the shadows that were kind of throwing me off. When you guys are sculpting, make sure you're coming up here and moving your light around, trying to get some different angles of your light so that you can kind of get a little bit of a different read on your character. Maybe a spooky read. Ooh, such spooky. Just to kind of see how your surfaces are flowing there a little bit better. Keep your light in one place the whole time. There we go. That's kind of what I'm looking for. If you keep your light in one place the whole time, it's kind of like sculpting without perspective on for a really long time and then turning it back on and realizing that stuff's just all wonky on you out of nowhere. Typically while I'm sculpting, I'll also swap between some materials pretty often. I mainly use my Follygon clay material, but I also like the basic material a lot. But if I'm sculpting, I'll basically just use my Folly clay, just because it's pretty much allows you to see the form just as well as the basic material, if not better. But it's a little bit softer on the eyes for like long periods of sculpting. I like it a lot. Hence why I made it and use it. I think there's like this really low... It's like there's this roundness, flat, and then back to round. So I wonder if I can get some of that roundness into this area of the nose. I think that's kind of one of the things that was really bothering me here. It's just a matter of looking at it from extreme angles, like this bottom-up look, so I can see some of that stuff. Getting some weird shadows here. Come on. Whew. Sometimes you feel like you're going back to square one here, back to the blockout phase. Still getting some weird kind of surface turns up through here that I don't want. If you're sculpting for like stylized anything, this is like the stuff that makes or breaks your sculpt. These really clean and consistent forms. Hold on one second. Alright, no big deal, just some dude walking through my yard. Don't know what he's doing. It's totally normal. Sadly, I do not know her. You do not know Domino. That's unfortunate. I don't know what her name is. Kinda looks like Day of the Dead makeup masked like that. It's pretty cool. I'm into it. Alright. How we looking here? Does anybody have any ideas for some fun stuff that we can do? I mean, Sculpt or any type of tool that you guys have questions about? I am almost to a place where we can start looking at something else for a little bit. Like I said, this will probably be a little bit of a shorter stream. I need to play with the poly paint on here too. I don't really do a ton of stuff with poly paint, so maybe that could be something to talk about as well. Oh, there we go. There's that weird little material junk that I was talking about, the little artifacts. Skin shade, fill that object back in. I've been also kind of playing with ZBrush paint material, which is very similar to Skin Shade 4. It's almost identical, but it has a little bit less kind of waxy subsurface scattering feel to it. This feels like it had a little bit more like skin to me. This is the Skin Shade 4. It feels like it's got a little bit more penetration of light into the material. The ZBrush, it feels more solid, but it's also like a little bit more, I don't know, like glossy, or it's got like a little bit of a higher diffuse setting or something on it. It's almost like it's combined with some kind of metallic material. I'm not sure. But I've been playing around with that a little bit too. I still kind of like the Skin Shade 4 a lot. Skin Shade 4 gets you some pretty accurate colors. But it's good to, like I said, switch your material around and try out some new stuff, of course. But switching that material will help you see things that maybe you didn't notice before. All right. Man, this is annoying. All right, so let's load up. Oh, no, I think I already have that one loaded. Let's load up version 4.2. Fortuna. Ah, darn. Maybe I don't have it. Well, that sucks. That's okay. How many undos we got here? About 1,000? Maybe we can just scrub through and see some of these things that we've done. We'll go back all the way to the start. Maybe. If ZBrush doesn't crash on us. It doesn't look like it got all the undos in there. Let's maybe just do this. Something like... Now what sucks is if you didn't quick save, you roll all the way back to like version undo history 1 out of 1,000, and then it quick saves for you and crashes or something. That's always fun. Overall, some pretty slight changes. If we're kind of comparing between the two of these, I can turn that off. Really cleaned up the silhouette so far, cleaned up some areas in the mouth, especially with our lower lip. Our chin, kind of tightening that silhouette, getting that point, as it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of looking a little bit too round, too chunky down here on that portion, I think, as well as adjusting the shape of our eyes a little bit more, but yeah, as well as fixing quite a bit of stuff on our nose and our silhouette there for the roundness of that shape. But much better now. All that little stuff that we've just done is kind of added up to a pretty good place. For my eyes, I've been thinking about this as well. I originally did have them just kind of hand painted really quick. We did that in one of our live streams, but I've been thinking about maybe how I could redo those. Let's see, 500,000. What do you guys think? We could play around with her eyes a little bit here. I think that would be fun. I think, so this one's like a little bit darker. I don't know if I have it pulled up. I do. So in the movie, she has like one yellow eye and one brown eye. I don't believe that's a feature that the actress has. I believe that's supposed to be the character of Domino. Or I don't know if this is Domino. I guess this is Domino as well in the comic books. I guess that was just a movie choice that they made to make one of her eyes yellow. I don't know. So she's got one brown, one yellow, and then she's got like this birthmark, I guess? I don't know. I'd guess that that's a birthmark. I don't know a lot about the character of Domino other than she is extremely lucky. So how do we want to do some eyes? I have a few ideas. I have a lot of ideas, actually. Let's try one of them. I want to get the angle of this correct because I'm not going to be rotating these most likely. Angle and size of our eyes. Also the way that in the illustration, the way that her eyes are going, they're like a little bit not cross-eyed even, like one's looking up way more than the other. Kind of funny. Alright, let's see, maybe a little bit too large. I do kind of want her still looking a little bit more forward and up, so I've duplicated my mesh to create this here. And then essentially what we're going to do is take this mask, and I'm sure you guys have played with this for other stuff like clothing or something like that, but we're going to try playing with the extract feature here. So extract, and this is going to be really thick because of the scale here, so let's do 0.001. Let's try extracting at that, see what we get. That's a little closer to what I was thinking, so accept. Grab here, I don't need that anymore. So now we just kind of have this mesh. What I really like about extract is that it creates polygroups for you, and you can play with ZBrush with those, with keep groups on, and do some really cool stuff. But instead of that, I think I'm just going to select this front face. I'll turn on double so that we can see the backside there. And then delete hidden. And then go down to edge loop, group loops. Click that just once. And then mask off our new group loops that we have created. And pull those group loops back into our eye, like so. So now I have this kind of orange polygroup here, and then a green one, and I'm gonna ZBrush with keep groups on. Let's just try 0.1 and see what it looks like. Okay. I'm going to use the Z modeler brush to delete some edge loops. Oh, did that close holes for us? It did close holes. I don't know why. It should not have closed holes. Let me delete that. I don't want that back face. Delete that. So with that, we have a decent kind of iris, sclera, pupil combo all in one that we can kind of paint on and play with, and even rotate around on top of this eyeball. I have this edge kind of fading back here, kind of rounding it out, so I might delete that edge and it'll kind of round out even more if I want that to round out even more, or if we want to bevel this edge loop here, that'll kind of tighten that, give it a little bit of a harder cutoff. I kind of like that look, so let's kind of keep that for now. And set our mRGB and just sample this color in here as a base. Now we can kind of start painting on these and maybe make one brown. I think her right eye Our left was brown. Yes, that is correct. All right. So I'd maybe have to paint these one at a time, or I could create UVs, create a texture map for the yellow one, throw it in Photoshop, convert it to brown with like a hue shift. In ZBrush, I don't think there's a way that you can do a hue shift on polypaint that you already have. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a way to do that. So, I don't know. Let's kind of play with polypainting these a little bit. It's a cool technique. Thank you, Naughty Panda. Yeah, it's just a quick little way so we can get something to play with here. And also, it's pretty easy to modify and make changes to. And you can make them pretty fast. So I sampled this highlight here on the bottom of her eye. We can kind of look at some techniques for painting eyes. We've kind of already done this kind of stuff before. For the most part, you know, darker, there we go. Darker on top, is that, okay. I thought I had my Z add-on and it was like pulling that out really far, and I did not. So of course, you know, darker on top, lighter towards the bottom, so I can use a somewhat larger brush on something like this at about right here. I'm looking at the circle on screen. I can't kind of use my mouse to point at it, but if you look at the bottom portion of that, see how it's kind of like this crescent moon shape? That's kind of what we're looking for in terms of where we want that highlight. So, you know, get a little bit of that kind of crescent moon shape for the highlight there, like so. And you can like gradate that as much as you want. I have my RGB up pretty high, so it didn't really, you know, make that very soft. I don't know. I think it looks fine. Let's sample our pupil here. And, you know, if you really want to, you can duplicate your mesh. Unfortunately, I'm working with local symmetry, so I cannot make this exact, but you can if you're working with good symmetry, unlike me. I'm being bad. The way I'm sculpting this is off alignment, so I have to use local sim. Actually, I'll keep that low. So if you want, you could maybe do something like this, you know, duplicating your mesh and scaling it in, and even making a pupil out of actual geometry. And then, you know, rotating it. That looks derpy. It's too big, and I can't really scale this perfectly in the middle, unfortunately. We can kind of paint it though, but I've done this for a lot of characters, especially stuff that's 3D printed. If I'm gonna print in like full color sandstone or something, it makes it really easy to block out colors that way. So let's grab kind of that dark brown color. I'm looking at the scale here. I think our whole thing here is maybe a little big, which is fine. Like I said, these are really great because they're easy to adjust. And also move around and do all sorts of stuff with them. Something like that. And if you want, you can take a really low RGB value, big brush, come up top and darken it from the top down. Start to, because I'm not painting on this as well, it's making it not work quite as well as I would like. Whoops. Thing that I like to do sometimes. Come through here. And, you know, manually paint in a shadow. Do something like fill object on this a few times. It's my low RGB value. This is one of the areas where you're gonna get those artifacts though. So let's try this. It'll probably still do it. Yeah. So that's why I'll just kind of manually try painting in some kind of shadow. Something like this. Really low RGB with black, and then just come through and play with it, and then if you go too strong on one side, you can kind of push it back through. But because these are separate, it's like not gonna work the way I want. Because I can't really match colors for the shading. I'd have to swap between these two and then come through and shade this at the proper angle. You can get, this is too bright at the bottom, but you can get actually really dark with your eyes. Try to get a really good distance read with them to start out. Let's go back. Alright. We'll just start by doing that, and if you want to do something really quick, if you're just like, yeah, this is just temporary, throw on your little highlights, your little farkles, and then get on with it. They look kind of off position and look like they're looking outwards right now, so I'm not really going to keep most of this. More just temporary, quick little paint. They're I think much too bright. And I wouldn't want to darken that all as one. So let's roll back here. Take a step back. That basic color, and just leave that for now for the block out. Let me see. I believe that last tool. Another one of these stupid calls. The first 6 digits are the exact same as my phone number. So weird. Ooh! Alright, so here's the eyes that we painted in our last stream. That are hand painted very quickly and done with the technique where I kind of take that large that I was kind of trying to show you. It doesn't really work as well as I would like with those separate pieces of geometry. So painted on directly onto the eye. This is all one mesh. You know, start with that block out, highlight yellow, do the top for that darken, get the crescent, get in with the pupil, and then from the top, what I was trying to show you guys is get something like this. And you can actually get pretty dark up here and end up, you know, essentially hand painting in a lot of the shadow that you get around the eye as well. And it creates a little bit more of a 3D look for sure. And then, you know, after that, if you want to get your little highlights back in there or whatever you're doing, it gives it a little bit more of a 3D look, I think. Having that kind of top shadow that would be cast from the brow and everything else there. But that's what I was trying to do. It just doesn't really work super well when you have those split up like that. So we'll just delete all that. Go back here. And what else, guys? What else? What else we want to do? Let's quick save. Let's save. because I have not done that in quite a while. I think I'm going to play with the hair here for a little bit longer so I can reposition some of this. We were playing with our hair in our last stream if you guys are more interested in how I sculpted some of these tight, clean forms up here. That was in our last one. It was fun to play with. But I've come to the realization that I need to, you know, get a lot more depth up here up front, kind of pull that forward, which I've done. And since I've done that, a lot of repositioning needs to happen. But yeah, we'll kind of work on that for a minute here. And then I need to go get some sleep or something, or chug some energy drinks. Probably the first one's better. And find out why random dude was walking through my yard. He came back and I heard some weird scraping noise like he was digging a hole. I feel like somebody's burying a body in my backyard. It's possible. Kind of want to pull some of this up, if I can, without screwing stuff up a ton. So I don't have my neck in here right now, unfortunately. So it's a little hard to gauge where some of this stuff needs to flow down here on the side to kind of fit and make sense. For the most part, what I'm looking for is to make sure that stuff isn't connecting too low on my head. So like that strand that I'm looking at now, this unmasked one, it's kind of just going into the side of her head. What I want to do is rotate that up and like pull it up or stretch it out or something. So it's more just kind of flowing down from the top of the head on the side there, and not looking so awkward. Some of this stuff is fine in the back. I'd like to get some more depth in terms of these different pieces are all roughly the same length back here, so kind of playing with those a little bit more, getting some of this overlaying effect that I have more so in the front would be nice. That's kind of where I've been paying more attention to, appropriately, because you know the front of your character, the face, most important. Back of the head, not quite as important as the front. But you know, still needs to get done. So more of this layering, more depth, more diversity. I just spit on my screen. I spit on my screen more often than I would like to admit. I'm also looking for these little gaps and trying to fill them in, make sure that my head ain't poking through. Might be best to start splitting some of these up too, just so it's a little bit easier to kind of work on. I thought about doing that earlier, but I don't know. Let's see here. Delete hidden, or I'm sorry, delete lower. So if you're going to split some objects up into separate subtools, you need to delete subdivisions first. And I'm just going to run in auto groups, make sure those are all different. Now I could run a group split right now, but that's going to create about 30 different subtools, which There's a lot to kind of have. How about instead I'll try to pick a few that are in different parts that aren't near each other that I can split off, and then I think that's a little bit of a better way to organize it. This makes more sense. Cool, cool. That actually works pretty well. Kind of looked like a dog there for a second. It reminds me of some character. I don't know what this reminds me of. It reminds me of something. I don't know what though. Alright. So if you guys don't know, you can run in your split operations here. There is group split, which will split all of your polygroups. You can't have anything hidden, which is why that was grayed out. So if I clicked group split, it would say, are you sure you want to do that? And I'll click cancel, because it's going to create a bunch of different polygroups here, or a bunch of different subtools here out of all my polygroups. If you do that to a mesh that has two polygroups like this, it will actually, you know, split off that geometry into two separate subtools. So sometimes it's useful for that. Typically what I use instead of group split though is split hidden. So instead of doing it that way, I would just, you know, select what I want and then do a split hidden on it. And I need double on for that as well. But that's how I like to work with it. There's a lot of different ways to kind of split your subtools and polygroups up. It's really just a matter of preference in my opinion. There's just so many different ways to do everything. It's just a matter of what works for you. And I have a bunch of stuff in my hotkey menu here, so it's pretty much split hidden for me, as well as split hidden, delete hidden. I like to use the selection tools more than the grouping tools for that kind of stuff. Alright, so I think that's a good enough for kind of organizing and making this a little bit easier to work with. If you are kind of doing something similar to this, of course after you're done you want to go through and click on Reconstruct Subdivs. And you can run that as many times as you had subdivision levels. So for me it was about 5, so I can step all the way back and then I'll still have all 5 of my subdivs. And you can go through your other geometry that you split up and reconstruct those if you want. I think I will do that so that I can kind of tweak these a little bit. And sometimes, depending on how complex your mesh is or how high the poly count is, the reconstruct subdiv can take quite a while to calculate. Seems like it's going pretty quick for me though, at least this time. So now that those are split up, I can start working on some of these a little bit more easily. It just gives you a little bit more control, so I can quickly turn on solo mode. It makes it just a lot easier to work with when you have not so many clustered subtools all in one area. Her hair makes me want to eat marshmallows. I've not had a marshmallow in quite a while, but I guess these would be more like chocolate marshmallows, wouldn't they? But do they make chocolate marshmallows? I have to imagine that they do, because a marshmallow is like what? Just sugar and water? I don't know. It's mainly just sugar. I don't know what marshmallows are made out of, guys. It's probably secret ingredients that they don't share with the public. They don't want the public knowing, so that we can create infinite marshmallows and upset the marshmallow economy. Makes sense if you think about it. Chocolate marshmallows, though, I'd be down with that. So definitely a lot easier to work with when these are split. The reason, so I'm kind of like toggling quick between these. If you guys don't have a hotkey for solo mode, definitely set that. I like to use the G key for my hotkey, just because F is frame, and then, you know, directly next to that is G. And I use the frame hotkey a lot to like frame in on stuff really quick. If I need to frame in on a specific subtool, it's really nice. So G is nice and close, and I pretty much never have to move my hand on my keyboard. It's all in one spot. I have like this nice claw hand that's like constantly running on a bunch of different hotkeys. I don't know if you guys can, you can kind of see my hand, I think. Let's see. You can, yes. So I pretty much never move my hand. It's all in one place. And actually, it's not, might not be the best in all honesty, because my hand starts to get really cramped if I keep it in that position too long. Which is just about every day. So the main thing that I'm looking at doing is getting some of that more variation in there, as well as cleaning up a lot of the silhouette areas that we have that are really messed up. So if I come in here, I'm using like the trim dynamic brush with holding Alt to kind of get in here and add some more form. And then using it to kind of round or flatten off the cap. Trim, trim, trim it. Oh, real quick, there is something I wanted to show you guys before I headed out. And I think one of these tubes would be a good example for it. So let's just duplicate one of these, and actually, you know what, I'll just grab a cylinder. So if you have a piece of geometry, you can go down in your initialize palette and you can make a lot of different primitives. I'm going to use that to make a cylinder like this, and then use my transpose tool to make it a little bit longer. These already have polygroups on them, so if I run dynamic or press D on my keyboard, it activates dynamic subdivs, right? D and Shift D instead of it's kind of like stepping through your subdivs if you had any. So I'm going to Control Shift and click on this polygroup here, this point, and that's going to select the top one and the bottom one. I'll turn on double so that it's easier to see. And then I'm going to go to Crease and click on Crease. And now when I turn on the dynamic subdiv, it's nice and tight up top, and if I add subdivs, it's going to retain that hard edge. So, somebody emailed me and asked me about creating edge loops in ZBrush. And there are two ways that I like to do that. So, the Slice Curve brush, if you hold Control and Shift, go up to your brushes, click on Slice Curve, it's right here. You can just, if you have a low poly piece like this, hold Control and Shift and draw out your line. If you're still holding the Shift key, you can let go of the Shift key and put it at any angle you want, but if you hold Shift, it'll snap to certain angles of about every 5 degrees. So you can just put a line, straight line across your mesh, anywhere you want. Let's say up here, and it'll put a poly loop in there, or an edge loop, depending on, you know, how you refer to it. You can also use your Z modeler brush. Comes default. It's in here somewhere in your brushes. Just hit B, Z, and then you should be able to find it. Using that, you can hover over a face. When you see that orange line, hold down the space bar and go to Insert Polyloops, and you're going to want to come down to Target and select Polyloop. There's some modifiers that you can play with down here, but for the most part, if you just click while you see that horizontal line, you'll get a polyloop or an edge loop. This one is creased for us, which we can look at how we can change that as well. What's good about ZModeler is that it will put it exactly in between the 50% mark here, between these kind of two edge loops. So if you have an end cap and an end cap and you want to put an edge loop right in the middle, it'll snap there for you. There are also additional modifiers down here to split to a specific count if you want to click and mess with that. Or you can just click and drag and add in additional poly loops that way and get a ton of geometry. Ooh, that's fun. The bowing out effect there that you see is another thing that can be modified, I believe, in here with your, or maybe it was just making more space for those, I'm not sure. I believe that there is a way that you can change that. But yeah, so slice curve, if you want to get some quick stuff, quick edge loops that aren't maybe super specific, but yeah, a lot of stuff. I really like the ZModeler brush. I play with it all the time and I use it for a ton of different stuff. There's some really neat things that you can do with it. That's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. But yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff with ZModeler. You can like split this edge, extrude down in there, and we got some cool chair leg or something. I don't know. You can mess with it, play around. I like the ZModeler brush a lot. I like to use it for all sorts of box modeling stuff, but we'll delete that. But yeah, so that's how you can create some quick or accurate edge loops in ZBrush. Lots of options there. Like I said, there's always a ton of different ways to do stuff. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you and yeah, what's quickest and most efficient for you. But it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so I'm going to say that's a good place for us to stop. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me, guys, while I made some pretty small tweaks to my face, I think. But the face is definitely in a lot better place now, and I'm a lot more happy with the direction that it's headed, proportionally, and especially with this silhouette. I think we got that in a good place now, with the eyes and everything that we tweaked there. Getting that roundness, that depth, more 3D. I'm into it. All right. Before I head out, of course, guys, do check out the concept artist D Dino over on ArtStation. I got something stuck to me. Go give them a follow. They're really cool. A lot of really cool work. And you guys, maybe if you're looking for a cool concept to sculpt, you can sculpt something else that he's got going on here. As well as, please check out my Gumroad if you have not before, if you like some of the free stuff I do, if you like my live streams, and you're looking for something that's a little bit more quality. I put a lot more work into these than I do into a lot of the free content that I produce here on my YouTube channel. So like my new ZBrush Sculpting Stylized characters for toys and collectibles, I have a professional background in sculpting for toys and life-size figures for amusement parks and museums and all sorts of other stuff. So if you're interested in that, go check that out, or if you're just interested in leveling up your ZBrush skills. I sculpted Charizard during that tutorial, so if maybe you want, I've professionally worked on stuff for Tomy and Pokemon, so if that's something you guys are interested in, go check it out. I also have some new mentorships available, which is pretty cool, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, some one-on-one feedback, critique, or sculpt-overs, go check that out. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see. Thanks for sharing your tips, tricks, and techniques. I learned quite a lot. Awesome. That's why we do this. That's why we hang out, to learn and ZBrush and chill and just talk. All right. Let's see. OBS. That's it, guys. That's all she wrote, or that's all I wrote. Have a good night, and I will see you guys in the next stream where we will be... I don't know what we're going to do in the next stream. Maybe look at her hands a little bit more, because they need some work. We were paying attention to these in our last couple streams. I kind of like this one a little bit more fun. But yeah, we'll maybe look at working on those a little bit more. And if anybody else has any suggestions or anything specific they want to see, definitely tweet at me so I can have a list of stuff prepared that is a little bit more tailored to some suggestions. All right, cool. Well, that's all we got. So I will see you guys in the next stream. Have a great night. Bye.